Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the opening episode of Defunded Not Derailed, mixed study programs for 2026 in partnership with Cambridge OCR and FE News. My name's Gavin O'Meara. I'm CEO and founder of FE News, and I'm joined by
Paul Steer. I'm Director of Policy at Cambridge OCR.
Paul. Thank you for co-hosting with me today.
It's a pleasure.
I love the title of this season actually, because it is very much around making sure that people aren't derailed. We've got a lot of big announcements that have happened, some that are coming, but I think this whole season is just trying to be helpful to everyone. And Paul, thank you for joining us on this. So am I right to set the scene as to where we're at a little bit, and then sort of bring in our guests? We've got two brilliant guests which we'd love to bring in soon. And everyone, we're live. It's 10:01. This is real. I'm real. We'd love for you to pop any questions over, and we'll do our best to answer them. Yeah, we don't have all the answers, but we're just going to be able to try to help everyone navigate this as best we can. So this is Defunded Not Derailed, mixed study programs for 2026. This is episode 1. It's all around uncertainties and upcoming changes. We're in partnership with Cambridge OCR, and basically we're going through a period of significant change, aren't we always in FE and skills? But this is looking at post-16 qualifications and the reforms from DFE and the phased defunding of a number of level 3 qualifications and the continued rollout of T levels. We've got new V levels. There's left many colleges navigating uncertainty whilst trying to plan confidently for the future, because September's coming around fast and there's been open days and there's people planning, and where are we at really? So this opening episode is all around uncertainty and upcoming changes, and this is trying to set the scene. So basically, what do we actually know about the reforms? What's still unclear? What should FE leaders be thinking about right now as they basically try to make some critical curriculum and strategic decisions? As I said, open days have been happening for people. Learners are being brought on stream. Awarded organisations have got a plan. So to unpack this, I'm joined by Paul from Cambridge OCR, who's Director of Policy. We've got Claire Green, who's post-16 and skills specialist at ASCL, the Association of School and College Leaders. And we've got Rob Nitsch, CEO of the Federation of Awarding Bodies. I can't think of better guests really to be able to help us navigate this. So we're going to look at the policy landscape, the implication for colleges and awarding organisations, and where alternative academic qualifications may sit, AAQs, within this new evolving system. It's a lot of change. So Paul, can I bring you in to maybe sort of set the scene a little bit? So there was a clear and, let's be honest, not a very popular plan by a lot of people in the sector to defund a wide range of large post-16 qualifications. It's going ahead to make way for new V levels, but there are lots of rumours circulating. Time feels like it's slipping away. September's coming up fast. There's even more rumours that they could be very short term. What could be a change of plan? Amount of people ask me, when's this announcement happening? What's going on? Could you shed some light on where we're at right now?
I will do my very best, Gavin. Okay. Thank you. It's so true what you say, that September is not very far away at all. And when we scheduled this event, we thought we might have some announcements from the DFE about the post-16 consultation that's been going on, their proposals for V levels, etc. I think we might have just peaked slightly early. I reckon it'll be next week or possibly the week after. But we've been waiting a long time for some information. So we know a lot, but there is some crucial information that we don't have at this stage. But I don't think that means that we can't have a good conversation running through kind of what we think might be coming and how we respond to that, and how we kind of try and be as agile as we possibly can. So I guess the first point is to say, and I'm trying to keep this as brief and simple as possible, which is quite difficult. We know that the last government had a very particular policy intent, which was that we should remove all large qualifications in the 16 to 19 space that are vocational or technical. So this would include a lot of your kind of established brands and Cambridge Technicals, BTECs, etc., that are 720 guided learning hours or above. So kind of your big full-time program stuff. They wanted to remove that, and the plan was to phase those out, and we would just have A levels. And if somebody wanted to do a full-time technical qualification, they would do a T level. There was a recognition that there needed to be something else in the middle, and that came to us having presented to us by that government a couple of qualifications that could sit in that space, which were the AAQs and the TOQs, the technical occupational qualifications. And there was a particular rule about all of those, which was that they could be no larger than an A level. So they'd be 360 GLH. Okay, all good. Well, you might not think so, but that was the plan. Then we had a change of government, and we had a quick review. And the outcomes of that review actually supported the same policy intent. I think it's worth saying now that I don't think that the policy intent has changed that much in terms of wanting to phase out large qualifications in the vocational 16 to 19 space. We got some changes in time frames, but more or less it was the same, and AAQs and TOQs would be coming in to replace or in some way to fill the space where a T level or an A level on its own wouldn't work. Following that, though, we have had the post-16 consultation, and that's kind of set the cat among the pigeons, because now we're looking at the introduction of V levels. Okay, now the very clearly set out in the proposals is again that there should be a phasing out of the large qualifications, and that there should be an introduction of V levels. V levels will, in the fullness of time, replace everything in that space, including AAQs and TOQs. God, this is complicated, isn't it? Right? But so now we are looking at a situation where from 2027 is the proposal, and we have challenged that. We think that's incredibly ambitious, but from 2027 autumn, the first V levels will be ready for first teach. At that stage, you will see a defunding of any qualifications that are in the same subject area as those V levels. And the V levels will be rolled out in kind of 3 tranches up until 2030. And as that happens, the qualifications in that space that are not T levels or A levels will gradually be withdrawn. In the meantime, the proposal said that they would continue to fund not just AAQs and TOQs, but other small vocational qualifications like the predecessors, so like your applied general qualifications and so forth, will continue to be funded. So all well and good. That does mean that we're seeing a bit of a cliff edge for a whole range of qualifications, and certainly the previous government, this government's previous intentions were to get rid of large qualifications 2026 and 2027. So I think we can still see the direction of travel. However, there are 2 things to bear in mind. One is we had an Jackie Smith was speaking at a Sixth Form College Association conference, and she said she had heard concerns about the withdrawal of large qualifications happening too quickly. She said, "You have been heard." And she said, in a couple of weeks, and bear in mind this was beginning of February, in a couple of weeks we will see the consultation outcomes published, and you'll see what we've done about timeframes and so forth. Hasn't come out yet. Like I say, maybe next week. And we are expecting some other announcements around the size of V levels, and hopefully a bit more detail about their purpose, because they are kind of squashing together those technical and those vocational small qualifications. And there are some there are some signals that have been sent out that the department is looking at whether all V levels should be the size of 360 GLH. Maybe in some sector areas they should be larger. So I don't know. I guess people are sitting there listening to that and thinking, "Oh, there's a lot of unknowns there."
Yep.
But I would go back to, I think there is a policy intent to move us towards something which is just A levels, V levels, and T levels, and that V levels are not going to be the same thing as the large qualifications that we will be saying goodbye to. I think, in fact, if you were to look at some of the AAQs that have come out, they'll probably give you a much closer idea of what a V level is going to look like. Right, enough said. Over to you, Gavin.
Yeah, no, that's cool overview. Actually, it's like really sets it well. Can I bring in Claire? Rob, can I bring you into the studio? So I'm bringing in Claire. Hey, Claire. Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, morning.
So we've got Claire Green from ASCL, Rob Nitsch from Federation of Awarding Bodies. Rob, can I start off with yourself? So, what does defunding of certain quals, planning, timing, what does that mean for awarding organisations? But the clock is ticking, isn't it? Like, where does it sort of come from your perspective?
Yeah, no, thanks, Gavin, and thanks to Paul for his introduction. And we would concur with the sort of scenario that Paul's laid out. We're expecting to hear the department's response next week, and then I think there'll be a follow-up from Ofqual. So the regulator will then start a consultation, which will get into the next layer of detail very quickly after that. So we probably are a fraction ahead, but I think that there was an expectation that would have been announcements earlier this week at the ATC that didn't happen at the conference earlier this week. In terms of awarding organisations, this is going to have quite a significant impact, because there's currently, and we need to remember that this change is not just level 3. I know we're talking about level 3 here, but I think everybody that's on the call will be aware of level 2 changes as well. And I'm not going to focus, this isn't focused on that, but there's also change in the apprenticeship space. So when you look at what awarding organisations are trying to do, they're working, there is this very significant barrel of change they're doing. And in terms of numbers, it's about 900 qualifications at level 3 and about 1,000 at level 2. So it's quite a lot. Ultimately, I think you will see less awarding organisations delivering than is the case at the moment. So that will have a significant impact. The two things that I'll add to what Paul has said, perhaps, is for people to bear in mind, is first of all, I think that the department is going to be really challenged to get brand new V levels on the streets for 2027, because that effectively means they've got to have got them ready by September of this year. So in terms of that 3-phase rollout that Paul talked about, I think the first qualifications that you will see will be very, very similar to some qualifications already in existence. So how I describe it to people that is in the first year, you're going to see some modifications to buildings that already exist, but they're going to be fairly minor and internal changes. In 2028, year after, you've got a chance of actually seeing some brownfield sites developed, but the greenfield sites probably won't emerge until 2029. So that gives you a feel for how it'll build out, which hopefully will smooth the passage. But I, like Paul, heard that the implementation may be tricky for 2027. I think it is exceptionally tricky. Awarding organisations are deeply uncomfortable about the timelines because they want to produce a quality product. They want to work with providers to make that work effectively. The other point that I would add to what Paul has said is we think that some specialist, smaller niche qualifications may also continue to exist alongside V levels, T levels, and A levels. And these are particularly employment-specific qualifications. Baker, blacksmith would be examples, perhaps butcher would be another, where they may somehow be either funded beyond 19, or they may be able, where employers want them, to bring it into funding. I think there'll only be a small number, but that'll happen. But it will have a significant impact on the awarding sector. I think you'll see some amalgamations, you'll see some changes in those that provide, and I think there'll be a limited number of organisations that can actually produce these national sessional exams. What I would say for the provider community, and I'll finish on this point, is actually we're going to go through a period of significant turbulence. But at the end of that, I think that actually they will have they won't have to deal with as many organisations as they have to deal with at the moment, potentially. I'm not trying to paint this I'm just trying to be realistic and actually give people the encouragement that we've got to get through this period of uncertainty. We, as a federation, are particularly interested in what the other political parties think about these reforms, because it won't have escaped everybody's imagination or understanding that there's a general election in 2029. And the reason that T levels have survived is there was cross-party support. So I think that's also something for colleges, providers to stay alert to, is to see what the politics is saying as the detail of these products start to emerge. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Gavin. Paul.
Yeah,
okay.
No, that's spot on, Rob. And good point about longevity of government and appetite. Actually, it's a really, really, really good point, to be honest. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And I think yes, there's further uncertainty which comes from the potential for political change in not so far off. There isn't at this moment cross-party support for V levels. In fact, quite the opposite as we stand at the moment. And I just thought one other thing to mention is that where there are no T levels, large qualifications will continue to be funded. There are areas like sport or performing arts, although the government has expressed an interest in developing more T levels in other areas. So that's...
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we know that the finance T level is not being delivered now. I think that will come in as a V level. Performing arts, the government is speaking to some of our members about what can be done in that space to develop that. I think sports a really interesting arena. If you look at the number of people that do sports qualifications, it's quite large, compared to the employment outlets from it. So I think those are all interesting elements. I think also, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens around the purpose and the size of, as you mentioned, Paul, the size of V levels. We think you could end up with 2 co-joined V levels that adds up to the 720 rather than the 360, so that they'll stick with the smaller ones, but actually they're sort of integrated, if you sort of mean. So I think there will be some perhaps potential for movement in that space. But I think we also need to be cognizant, and this is why the purpose will be so important. And I would encourage people to look at this carefully when it hopefully comes out next week, is V levels fill a massive space. There will be more people doing V levels than currently do A levels. If you get the same number of students currently on it, it will be the predominant qualification that people take on at the age of 16 in numbers. If the current pattern is supported, and that will have two destinations. Destination one will be employment and work, and destination two will be higher education. And it will be really interesting to see how the purpose is developed to feed those two exit doors, for want of a better example. And it won't be that they'll be exclusive. It's just a V level may primarily lead people into work, and another V level might primarily feed HE. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how that is accommodated within the way that they're described. And that's why the off-qual consultation is one to also be aware of, because that will deal with issues like this.
No, that's really, really good point actually there, Rob. Claire, can I bring you in? How are you navigating this from like a sixth form college perspective with learners on open days, planning for the future? What would you like to sort of throw into the mix here? Because people are trying to navigate this, and I've got learners got a hard stop of a new academic year coming and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's been really tricky, really challenging for school and college leaders to manage this period, particularly this admission cycle that we're in right now for September 2026 starts, with so little information that's definitive, at least. It's really been difficult for schools and colleges to advertise what their specific course offer will be for September 26, to plan their timetables, to plan their staffing. It is really tricky for year 11 tutors, to be able to support their students with what options are available to them when actually the information that they're getting from providers is so general, because it's had to be, because there isn't the definitive guidance on which courses will actually run. So I think what lots of school and college leaders have done is assumed that the timeline that was published with the white paper and the consultation is what is actually going to happen, and they've had to adapt their offer for 26 to reflect that. So it might be that we have an announcement in the next week or so, and then they have to quickly rethink what they can put on the table for September 2026, which is a really difficult position to put school and college leaders in at this point in admissions cycle, when for most people across the country, they've already sent out offers to their applicants by March. And, as an organisation, we've been trying to speak to the DFE about this constantly, that we need some more definitive answers for school and college leaders. They need to know lists of qualifications that will definitely run in 2026 and will definitely run in 2027. A lot of our members contact us asking what specific, I currently run this qualification. Can I continue to run it next year? Can I run it in September 2027? I'm going to need to think about recruiting teachers if I can't run it for different subject areas to maintain numbers, because obviously, recruitment into your sixth form college or FE college has a financial implication as well for the institution. So this is information that we absolutely need to know. So I really hope that in the next week we get something more definitive that allows that decision making to happen before we get to a situation where the recruitment cycle for teachers for this year is over. So yeah, I think it's been very tricky, but people are working with what they do know, and trying to start from that point. So I know a number of institutions are looking at, do they bring in new AAQs for September, because at least they know that they're approved and will be in train for the next couple of years before V levels come in to replace those. And that's probably a sensible way to go for, if you want to maintain numbers in particular subject areas where you've got a replacement qualification that is approved and funded and will count on the performance measures and so on. So yeah, I think it's making sure really for school and college leaders that they stay up to date with the announcements. And it is frustrating that they're being sort of drip fed across the year. But, you know, that's where organisations like ours come in to try and update our members with the most up-to-date information that we can so that they can make those decisions moving forward. But we do appreciate that it's an incredibly frustrating period for everybody who's on the front line in this.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think David's got a really good point around information, advice and guidance is going to be absolutely vital here for everyone, isn't it, to be able to sort of take it forward. We're running out of time, and I think we're only just sort of, it feels like we're getting started. One thing I wouldn't mind asking, particularly with next week, so I know people are listening to this at all levels, unintended consequences is one-liners, if we could, on what things do people need to be thinking of with this next stage. So are there any unintended consequences that could happen with this next stage, or gaps in provision? Yeah, we haven't mentioned science, IT, health. They're like 2 or 3 priority skill areas for government. Is there anything which you would want to say you would love to be able to see in this next stage of the consultation? Claire, I can see a nod and a smile.
Well, we've been supporting the Sixth Form Colleges Association Protect Student Choice campaign throughout to try and make sure that defunding doesn't happen too soon before there's adequate qualifications to fill that space. And currently, with the proposals as they are, with a September 27 start for V levels and the plan to defund lots of the diplomas, the doubles and the extended diplomas, the triple BTECs that are hugely popular across the country in the subject areas you've just mentioned. No, if that goes ahead as planned, there will be a qualifications gap. And that is a real concern for us, because large numbers, if you look at the proportion of students who currently do apply general qualifications, who are disadvantaged students or who are SEND students, there's a higher proportion of those groups of students that do AGQs than do A levels and T levels, for example. So we really don't want to see that gap. So I really hope that next week there will be some positive news that will allow those diplomas and extended diplomas to continue just for this transition stage, so that we don't have that interim gap, because that really is the cliff edge that you were describing earlier. And I think that would be a real backward step. And we want to see, you know, that the intention of this policy long term, as Rob said earlier, is to this sort of landscape that is more simplified, easier for learners to understand, easier for providers to deliver potentially. Well, we need to make sure we sort of smooth the path to get to that point. So we really hope to see a further pause to the defunding of those larger qualifications to allow that transition to be more successsul.
Yeah, no, cool. Rob, we have literally about a minute left. What would you want to see? I know.
Yeah, I think just on what Claire's just said, you know, we would agree with Claire's position, but that wouldn't be the learning from T levels. So it'll be really interesting to see what government does in that space. That T levels were thought not to have thrived because of competitors weren't removed from the market, and of course a lot of the competitors are AAQs. And most of the AAQs are in spaces that are in wave 1. So that makes it even more acute, the wave 1 rollout. I think the one thing I'd say is think about staff preparation. You know, I'm a governor at a college. These aren't just, you know, talks done slightly differently or BTECs or whatever. Actually, you know, one of the learnings from T levels, and I was involved in the rollout of those, is actually that it requires different classroom techniques, and getting staff getting their heads around that. I know everybody will try to do that, but getting your heads around that in a pressurized scenario requires a lot of leadership input.
Yeah, no, definitely. Paul, we're all
right then. Really quickly, let's just remember that to date, the number of 16 to 19-year-olds taking T levels has been round about 2%, and with poor completion rates. So we're not going to see a huge number of people moving towards there. So what we provide in the space between A levels and T levels is absolutely critical.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Rob has made a really good point about longevity here. It wasn't that long ago we would have had a conversation about ABS. Do you know what I mean? And like, what does that mean going sort of forward? So for anyone who's new in, that's Advanced British Standards, which is like long gone. So what does this mean when we talk about longevity and looking beyond like?
I thought it was coming back. I thought it was coming back, Gavin.
Who knows what's going to happen? It just makes it so exciting. Everyone, thank you so much.
If anybody's listening, that was just for fun. It is not,
that was just a joke. No, not. So completely weird. That's an in-joke. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully, we will hear some more news next week. And if we do hear some more news next week, we're going to be quite agile with how we're going to looking to do the season, and then be able to come and stop and come in and then say, what next do we know? And how can we then help navigate this all together? So Claire, thank you. Rob, thank you so much. Paul, it's been really cool working with you on this. And everyone, hopefully we will hear some more news next week, and we'll be with you really, really soon, because things might be getting defunded and changes might be happening, but we are not going to be derailed. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you really soon.